This is In Character. I'm your host, Gerard Robinson, Vice President for Education at the Advanced Studies in Culture Foundation. Hello, this is Gerard Robinson, and welcome back to another session of In Character. I'm joined by Leigh, who is part of a very good group conversation about equity. And she is right now in Iowa, but she has traveled many places, and she will talk to us about that as well. And as you know, these one-on-one opportunities give us a chance to do a deeper dive into some of the issues we addressed in our group call. So Leigh, welcome back to In Character.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right now, you are an entrepreneur. You've got a company. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, you were in the classroom working on equity issues. Talk to us about your time in the classroom on equity, and then we'll move to another area.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things, and as you mentioned, I've been to a lot of different places. I've had the opportunity to teach in schools and in rural schools and in suburban schools and public and private. And one thing that I recognized overwhelmingly, and this is clear from data that we see, is that our schools are segregated today. They are racially segregated. They are socioeconomically segregated. And I think that it is one of my jobs as an educator is to desegregate the education experience for students. I think that's particularly true for predominantly white schools, which is the demographic makeup of the school that I'm in right now in Iowa. It is predominantly white. And because of that, I believe because of that isolation and segregation breeds racism because of fear of not knowing the other person. So in education, I think it is so important to cultivate experiences in which students can, first of all, learn a more accurate and truthful history of racial inequality in our nation. I think once they start to see the cyclical nature of racism and the systems within it, they can start to feel empowered to undo it rather than just say, well, this is the way it is. So I think history is key. I think people and relationships are key. So considering how we can build authentic relationships with people of color, whether that's partnering with other schools, I think that's a really important piece of desegregation and something that I've done a lot and has been probably the most impactful thing. So partnering with other schools, partnering with community organizations, and to be clear, not partnering with this frame of mind of going out to help, right? We're not like, here come the white people to help. It's to learn, to love, to care for other people. You know, when I ask my students, what do you care about? It's always connected to a person they care about. And that's really what opened my mind to realizing, well, then I need to help them care about people that they just aren't in relationship with every day and build those authentic relationships.
You talked about urban and rural. Zip codes have a lot to do with this. Right. Can you share an example either from your rural experience or urban where you saw a partnership start to break down some of the, let's just say, the messiness that has led to some of the things that we have right today, whether it's race, class, or both?
Absolutely. So the school that I teach at now in Iowa, we partner with a school in the North Lawndale neighborhood of Chicago called Collins Academy. And that's the school that I taught at when I was in Chicago. The demographic there is about 100% African-American. And it looks very different socioeconomically. And the resources for the school are very different. I use the example of in my school in Mount Vernon, I can walk into the supply room when I need pretty much whatever I want. In Collins Academy, we had to provide our own printer paper because we couldn't even make copies. And so there's huge differences both in public schools. Well, so we started this partnership about 4 years ago. And what we did was we just spent a day where we went to Collins Academy and we did some icebreakers. We spent some time with students, with a group of students there led by another teacher. And then we went out into the community and really simply, we had a meal together and we went to a museum and did a scavenger hunt, just spent the day hanging out, cultivating authentic teenage experiences together. And that really has been life-changing, as students have reported. In fact, after our first year doing that, one student came back to me afterwards and said, you know, I stayed in Chicago for the weekend because she had a volleyball tournament. And she said, as I was walking around the street, she said, I realized that I'm not afraid of Black people anymore because I spent one day. And that feels like we shouldn't be in this place where we're still having to say those things, but we are. And if we don't acknowledge that, then it's going to keep going underground, right? And it's going to keep popping up in really horrific ways. And so that's a profound experience. In fact, last year, 12 students from Collins Academy came to Mount Vernon, stayed with host families. We did college tours together. We ate meals together. We went sledding together, and they presented at a school-wide conference that I run called the CARE Conference, in which I try to make sure my students at Mount Vernon learn from experts of color in their field of expertise, since I was teaching population is so predominantly white. And at Mount Vernon, every teacher there identifies as white. So they presented, they shared their experiences. It just was a powerful time of relationship building, and those relationships have continued. And it's important to care about people and build those kinds of relationships. It's really, Gerard, it is life-changing. Like, we just need to know people, right? Knowing people changes people. And our schools don't let us do that when they're so segregated. So as teachers, we got to make it happen.
Young people are willing to do things like this. Often it's the adults, the grown-ups in the room, who are the biggest challenge. How have you navigated some of the challenges of either an administrator or a family or someone else says, I think this is a great idea, but it's moving too fast, too soon? How did you address an issue like that?
Yeah. So first of all, I want to say that I have incredible administration. My superintendent and principal have been so supportive, and I want to acknowledge that. And I also acknowledge that that's not true in every situation for every teacher. I think some things that help is to really invite people into something exciting, right? So this conference, for example, was really exciting. We got a lot of media attention, and we made sure that people were reporting on this really cool thing that we were doing at Mount Vernon. And I think that helps to thwart some of the naysayers. Now, I'll be honest with you, students were called out of school that day because, quote, we weren't doing anything important. But we'll have that. You know what? We're going to have that. But trying to surround the whole space with positivity, I think that's one. And also really trying to prepare our students to have these hard conversations with adults. We practice. We did a civil rights tour of the South with an amazing company called Freedom Lifted. I'm going to say that again, Freedom Lifted, because it's incredible. A lot of Mia Henry, the owner, her stuff has gone virtual now. But we did a tour and then came back, and I said to the kids, what do you want to do, or what do you want to share with your community? And so they curated this amazing exhibit of knowledge, and not just kind of a walkthrough and like, here's my poster on Selma and here's my poster on Montgomery, but I'm talking like, come over here and have a conversation about the way the way slavery has evolved and not ended. Come over here and hear this spoken word poetry from a student of color and a white student about the divide in our lives and the unity that our hearts desire. A really incredible event. Come over here and see this project and have this conversation about what white people need to be doing. And here's this unknown piece of history. So we took that on the road to other schools, and the kids got more pushback from teachers walking through the exhibit than anyone else. And it was good, and they talked about that, and being able to stand by what they know and what they believe is good, and practicing those conversations with them is so critical. Students, I learned so much from my students, and they are such leaders. And I think if we just kind of let go of some of the control and provided these experiences, not really knowing where they're going to go, because I have to teach my kids how to be appropriately uncomfortable, right? We didn't know how it was going to go. We've done a lot of things where we did not know where it was going to go, and just kind of trusting that we're in it together and building that relationship. So those are some of the things that we've done. I'm not trying to pretend that it's not going to be hard, because when they leave my space, they're going to be in hard spaces. We have to practice for that, how to be an activist, how to be an ally, or et cetera. They have to practice.
Well, thanks for opening up yourself and the stories of your students to us, because that's real world work. Last question for you. You're now an entrepreneur. You're still involved in equity. Mm-hmm. How is that working out in the new space that you are walking in?
Yeah. So I still, I have taken a leave of absence this year, but still working closely with this school. And my desire, and what I really see my role, is to facilitate learning experiences for people. This past summer, I started something called the Undone movement, which, you know how those things go. 400 and some people signed up, but we had about 100 people on most of our calls, predominantly white people, taking them through a series of books. We had speakers of color at each event except for one. Jane Elliott was a speaker. And we had just lots of action and accountability. What's your 2-week commitment? What's your 4-week commitment? And I see the fruit in those spaces as well for people. I think one thing that I recognized this summer was that it seemed that so many people that I knew, whether it was really closely or through social media, white people, had this heart, like, I want to do something, but we don't know how, right? We just, it's something that's not taught in schools. And even for me, like, I can't go out there and do this on my own. My experiences extend as far as my whiteness. So building partnerships is key. And so that's really how I see my business. How can I help you develop curriculum that's going to provide windows and mirrors for your students? How can I help you have a learning experience that's going to change your mind? How can I set you up with an amazing speaker or person that you can partner with to move forward in some way in your curriculum? So I am all about partnering and paying folks for their work and trying to make sure that we are just really building relationships. And I just sort of see myself as, I don't know what you would call it. I don't know if gatekeeper is the right word, or bridge builder or something, but I'm a curator, right? I want to make sure that I'm curating experiences that change people, curating experiences that build authentic relationships, curating experiences that build the kind of empathy that we need in order to really be change makers in whatever spaces that we're in.
The author Malcolm Gladwell would call you a connector.
Thank you. I like that.
Yeah, you're in the space doing that. And I would call you great and what you're doing wonderful.
Well, thanks.
So keep up the good work. So thank you for joining me again for another conversation on In Character. Look forward to more. And I would definitely take a look at the company that you identified, because I know a few people who could probably benefit from that kind of trip. And if people want to learn more about your work, what's your website?
It is undoneconsulting.com. The idea is that this work is hard and it causes an undoing so that we can rebuild. Undoneconsulting.com.
And with that, we'll talk another time. Thank you.
Thank you.